Welcome back to another episode of the 716 Sports Podcast. We've been gone for quite a while. Very intermittent these days, and we apologize for that. We have no idea what we're going to talk about today.
I'd like to apologize to absolutely fucking nobody.
Yes, exactly.
Sometimes in life, you just need a chance to just take a breath, sit back, come back more refreshed and focused.
That's exactly what we're doing.
That's what Conor McGregor's doing too right now.
Yeah, well, he doesn't have much of a choice. I believe his foot has decided that he will be taking a break. His foot took that rather literally, and now he'll be forced to sit out for a little bit. Conor is, at this point, a little washed, unfortunately.
But did you see Ronda Rousey right away giving him credit, saying how the UFC owes him because that man is already promoting a next fight that's already generating buzz. Like, the guy isn't going to walk for months.
It's Conor and Ronda both who are responsible for a resurgence, or not even a resurgence, a surgence.
Correct. Because
the UFC was not in that kind of spot before Ronda and then Conor after her. So she's absolutely right. Say what you will about Conor, and he's not even X% of the fighter these days that he was at his prime. But for all the shit he gets, he deserves a lot of credit for making the sport more marketable and drawing a lot of media into it.
I think there's a point to where you become a great fighter and you make your money. You just lose your edge. You know, you lose that snarl, the grit. You lose that like killer instinct. He hasn't been the same since he got the $100 million. Let's be honest about it. He's just like, okay, I got my money. I don't really need to be amazing, be great at this. You know what I mean.
Yeah. The other part is that now everyone is preparing for you specifically, because when you're the chaser, everyone's gunning for the guy at the top. But when you become the top dog, everyone is specifically training to learn how to beat your ass specifically. And it's a whole different ball game. And I would say the hunger and Conor being, no longer being just a guy who's trying to make ends meet, going to being a literal multimillionaire with his own whiskey and the top paid athlete in the world for a period of time. It's like, it's a whole different mindset, absolutely, being the guy on top with a huge contract, which most UFC fighters won't sniff in their entire career.
Well, and there's wisdom in Dana White, too. Say what you will about any thoughts of him. He knows how to market his assets as well. They are marketable, and he capitalizes on that. Like, I think he's done a good job with UFC to make it an opportunity, to leverage Ronda Rousey and Conor McGregor and get them to a point where they could be that successful and make that kind of money. And then what happens is it feeds into itself. He created a well-oiled machine. He didn't waste the talent there. Like, the NHL wasted star talent. They don't understand how to promote stars. The NBA absolutely knows how to capitalize on its stars and makes them the face of everything, and it's amazing.
Well, this first popped into my mind because we're recording tonight on a Tuesday, which is an odd night for us. We usually do the Mondays. Tuesday during the MLB All-Star Game. And baseball has been another sport that for a long time has not necessarily done a great job of marketing its young, exciting players. We had a long discussion about Randy Johnson before we started coming on air here as maybe one of the exceptions. But tonight is all about, Shohei Ohtani, Fernando Tatis Jr., Vladdy Guerrero. Hockey could learn a lot from that because Connor McDavid is the best player in your sport. And if you are an East Coast hockey fan, you watch him maybe once a year because they don't put his games on TV in primetime. They don't put his games anywhere you can watch him. Buy your NHL out of market, buy your center ice, and then watch a 10 o'clock Connor McDavid game. The Connor McDavid should be playing 8 o'clock games on ESPN2 or ESPN now. I almost said NBC Sports, which is now defunct, and the deal is officially, now that the Lightning have won the Cup, transferred over to ESPN, who I'm sure, great sports network. In no way, shape, or form have they repeatedly shot themselves in the foot about Major League Baseball here over the last 48 hours. Connor McDavid, Jack Eichel, Austin Matthews, whoever at the top of the game. The NHL needs to find a way to make these guys a bigger deal because the only discussions that you get to have about these players right now that the NHL is promoting is where's X player getting traded? Right. Well, when will X star player want to move out of this market? Because unless you play in New York, Pittsburgh, Chicago, or LA, no one gives a shit.
Even in LA, it's hard they're vying with so many other sports. I do have to say a funny story when you were talking about NBC Sports. As the Stanley Cup was being paraded around the ice, there was a moment for the broadcast team to say, our last hockey game on NBC Sports, it's been a pleasure. And Pat big rig maroon right near a rink mic. Fuck yeah! And it's like the
audio guy didn't even bother
he
cutting it.
Certainly
He's like,
was
fuck it.
not. We're saying fuck yeah to NBC Sports being done. It just was the perfect F bomb in the midst of a sentimental moment. And I know it sounds awful, but it's similar to there's a baseball game the other day that was going on, and they were talking about losing someone, close to the team. And
there's a deep drive to left field by Nick Castellanos.
God, he smoked one like 400 feet to left field, and he's like, and even the commentator's like, never a good time, not a good time to be in the middle of talking about losing someone that passes away.
I hope Castellanos just homers during every major historical event now. He homered during Tom Brenneman's got caught on a live mic moment. He homers during the obituary. He would have homered during the Hindenburg crashing.
Yes. He might have. We don't know that.
He may have.
Prove that Nick Castellanos didn't hit a home run.
He's just going to be hitting home runs during all major historical events from now on.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I know, and to transition to, I think maybe the major talking point. This might be a bit of a smorgasbord of a show. I don't think there's a lot of major topics to hit. I would like to transition from your point about NBC Sports to relevant to the Sabres news. How about the Senators hiring Pierre McGuire?
At least he won't be on major network hockey anymore.
That is a plus.
Here's my thought on Pierre McGuire. He's a former GM, right? Former coach, correct? He coached on the staff. He may have even been a head coach somewhere, but
up in Kamloops, British Columbia.
I mean, an NHL head coach.
Yeah, I have
but
no idea.
he, I think a lot of he was doing when he would talk about what a player's background was, and he'd say, I was talking to his family back in Moose Jaw about. I think what he was honestly trying to do was continuously let people know how connected he was to the hockey community, because I think he was at all times auditioning for a front office job. So when he's able to say, I was talking to scouts, I was talking to... Now, when I'm watching the game, I could not care less most times because it's just not relevant to the game that's happening in front of me. But it did work out for him. It's almost like the best example I could think of is in I Love Lucy. Desi Arnaz was always singing because he was hoping to get a record deal, right? And Pierre McGuire's between the benches talking about this prospects back home. He was talking to, 15-year-old coach scouts, whatever, about this player up in, what do you got?
Very much
he was a coach
in the NHL,
assistant
correct?
GM.
Assistant GM. See, so
the coach of the Whalers, really solid 23-37 record.
nice.
Well,
So he just talked about all these player backgrounds as very much a dress for the job you want, not the job you have kind of situation.
That's my best guess. That's just my 2 cents on it. I could be way off base, but that's
very
what it feels
advanced
like.
level self-marketing. And if that's true, I respect it. If I was a Senators fan, I wouldn't be elated. As a Sabres fan, I couldn't give two shits about what the Senators do with the front office. But you listen to Pierre talk, and I have never once, and this has been bandied about on the internet a little bit, I won't pretend to know his every thought, so I could be very wrong. But Pierre is very much strikes me as a grit and determination kind of scout, where he likes play, and there is a level of that is very important in hockey. But I feel like he's not going to be a guy who's trying to build a team that functions well. He's just going to try to find 18 guys who just play their hearts out. And unfortunately, this isn't the Mighty Ducks. You do need to kind of combine some different talents and skills as well. This may be in an era where analytics, whether you like them or not, are more and more integrated with every team decision. The Senators are just going to be, they're going to be playing the banjo in a band full of guitars. It's going to be fine.
Pierre McGuire also, I don't want to say brought players the wrong way, but I think it was when Montreal beat Toronto, and he was talking to Josh Anderson or something after the game, and he was like, tell me how you're feeling right now. And the player's like, well, I wish I was in the locker room celebrating with my teammates, but I'm here talking to you. And I know he's got
that's not even Pierre, though. The on-air microphones are...
I've been that guy, that had to do an interview after a loss or something, and it's really difficult. But, I think that he had a bit of a reputation, and maybe not a great one for being between the benches, but now we'll see how he does with another crack at the front office. What is it, assistant GM role with the...
It's like
player development.
Yeah, player development. Yeah. So he's got to head over scouting and...
Who hired him? Melnick?
Probably.
I mean, I don't know.
Ottawa is probably the only franchise that I've heard of that is fighting for the most dysfunctional title with the Sabres.
Yeah, but I think, and this is going to sound super pessimistic. Ottawa's figuring it out. They went on a run last year.
They were, and then they hired a guy who thinks analytics are dumb.
Well, yeah, but I think that didn't they go like 10-4-1 in their last 15 games.
They played better than Buffalo
played
did down the
really
stretch
well
for sure.
at the end of the season, and those numbers could be totally off.
They have some good pieces.
That's what
there.
I'm thinking. Like Shabbat is legit, and you got Kachuk, and some of these.
They are also not too far removed from the taxi ride broadcast, so let's not give them a complete free pass.
Yeah, I mean, you could talk about whatever.
And how great are analytics though? What's the Moneyball team that's been successful?
Montreal.
Only thing analytics.
Literally the Oakland Athletics. That's what the entire.
I'm talking
league is
about. I'm talking about hockey.
That was good.
I'm talking about hockey.
Montreal, right? Montreal.
I don't know.
It's Montreal right now.
Only thing analytics really proved in hockey is that possession's important.
Yeah.
Oh no shit.
Well, with Montreal, they almost had to get creative because they have this cinder block around their necks called Carey Price's $16 million cap hit or whatever it is. It's something absurd. So they had to figure something out, and they did do a pretty crazy rebuild, trading away Pacioretty, and they must have found something.
I'm not dogging it. I'm not trying to dog it.
I'm trying to give you a legitimate answer. I think that you have.
This guy hates analytics. They're going to suck forever. He doesn't like analytics.
No, I think the point is you have to use both. You can't use analytics only, but you also can't be like, well, no team's done it successfully, so I'm just going to. Pierre comes across to me very much, and again, just from an outside perspective, he comes across as a very like, well, I know these guys. I just I'm going to go out and talk to players, get a good feel for who they are as men, and we're going to bring just good hockey players into the locker room. And when outside of the Buffalo Bills has building a team on quote unquote culture ever been as the defining principle ever worked, the Bills are very much the exception to that. But I know everyone in this room, when Sean McDermott came in and said we're going to build a team based on culture, everyone just shook their heads a little bit inside, maybe even externally. The Bills are an exception to the rule. You have to have at least some statistical backing to your thoughts, or at least be willing to look at charts and be like, well, maybe because otherwise you end up playing Vladimir Sobotka 20 minutes a night.
Sobotka.
They loved him though. I'm sure he was a great locker room guy. He fucking sucked at hockey, but he was a great locker room guy. So anyway, my point is there has to be a balance.
No, I agree.
I'm interested to see how it plays out for Ottawa.
I've always said that. I just think as people like.
Yeah. And on the other hand, to your point, you can't just shun the eye test entirely and be like, well, the numbers say I have to do this. There always has to be guys willing to make gut decisions that find outliers.
I'm always kind of a weird. I don't know why. I'm always weird. Kind of a weird like Pierre McGuire apologist. I don't get why he gets the bad rap. I never thought he was that bad. I mean, yeah, it's not. I mean, it's not that easy doing color commentary for a full hour. You kind of run out of things to talk about.
Is he the one that called the CN Tower the Space Needle?
I don't know.
No, that
that
was old Czech.
He is kind
Milbury. That was Mike Milbury.
Yeah.
He does say some weird shit. He's kind of a fucking goofball. But I never hated his color commentary.
I just don't feel like he talked about what was happening on the ice. Like he never gave an analysis to what was, and this is I'm pumping your tires and our tires when we call a game and you say something like, no, that's the job. Like you're clearing out bodies or the puck, one or the two, and like that you're adding to the value of the game you're providing analysis. I don't need to know that Whitney Dove is 5'7" from Toronto, Ontario. Like
fair.
That, like your job as an analyst at some point is to break down what just happened, and like you can bring color to what's happening by explaining what unfolded and why it happened.
He's giving the Amazon Alexa version of color commentary, which is Alexa, tell me about this player.
Right.
He's like, Patrick Kane grew up in Buffalo, New York.
He
He was selected first overall by the Chicago Blackhawks.
He's now forced to always
Pierre.
take Ubers because taxi drivers won't pick him up.
And the only way talking directly about somebody like that and just physical description about them is if that physical description actually was a part of the play.
Sure.
Right.
Like if,
I agree.
Like if
Like the
Whitney
7 foot
Dove's
tall Syracuse goalkeeper we had the other week, or however tall she
Yes.
was.
6 foot. I looked it up. 6 foot.
Okay. She looked up. There was a 7-inch goalie height difference in one of the FC Buffalo games, and that the Syracuse goalie who had the height advantage kept making fingertip saves. That kind of stuff, obviously. But yeah, if you're just like, oh, he's fast. Okay, he got beat on that play. I don't care if he's fast.
Right.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see. The other major personnel move, and I guess I bury the lead a little bit on it, that happened since the last time we recorded, is the official announcement that they're keeping Donnie Meatballs.
Donnie Meatballs.
Which is a nickname made by Sabres Twitter that they immediately made a shirt about because Pagula's going to Pagula.
I thought we were supposed to have Meatball subs if this was became official.
Oh, we
I
did say that.
remembered this at 8:45 tonight. I'm not kidding. I dropped the ball. I have everything to make them. We can make it happen next time. I just got to remember before 8:45.
We can save it for the season opener now.
It's true.
True.
We could. That'll probably be the next time we podcast at this rate.
we got so
NFL
much
preseason.
football happening.
I know.
Once football happens, I feel like the spirit gets brought back into the room.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, it's like
At least
so-
these
if the
days.
Sabres were good, it would be so different.
Well,
but-
true.
I feel like it's all, well, you really think about the timeline of the off seasons. Football starts picking up. You get training camp, you get preseason, and then you get the NHL starts kind of wrapping up a bit, right? It all kind of start at the same time. And we're in that weird lull right now in the off season where there's not free agency, there's not draft. There should be free agency right now, but
Yeah.
there isn't because.
July 1st.
Yeah. But we'll get back to obviously weekly. But there's nothing much going on right now, and we don't talk about Jack Eichel and Sam Reinhart so fucking much.
Well, we gotta talk
I think
about
our
that,
past
but-
3 podcasts were just about Sam Eichel.
That works.
Sam Eichel
Sam
It all
Eichel.
does blend together.
and Jack
at some point.
Reinhart.
Yep, Sam Eichel and Jack Reinhart.
I'll admit that I was
Legendary
wrong
Sabres.
back when I forget which of you initially asked the question, asked about whether or not we thought they keep Granato. Back 2 weeks into his tenure, and I said no. And I'll admit that at that point, I didn't expect the kind of performance out of the team that they got. I thought he would do an okay job, but I thought that playing without Jack and playing with a team that looked so awful, I thought he wouldn't have a chance to prove himself. And clearly, I was incorrect. So good for Granato. He
And didn't
seems
he-
like a good guy. He's deserved this chance, and I'm glad that he's getting it.
And didn't he say when he came in that give him 2 weeks to clean up what was going on? And he pretty much only needed 2 weeks to mostly clean up
did it
what
take
was
so
going
long?
on.
Did you hear
Like
what
it-
he said in the press conference announcing him as coach? He was like, we had 18 practices.
13.
13, right. Were
I was
you
gonna say-
going that point?
I was going to say the same
It
thing you're
was
just
so
saying.
cerebral.
Yeah.
Like, and for him, like, being a development coach, he give the number, like, a regular development practice season was about 107 practices. We had 13 or whatever. Like, super cerebral approach. And once again, you can get into the same argument with analytics and eye tests. Like, practice isn't everything by any stretch. Like, I think we talked about how John Tortorella 2 seasons ago when Columbus went on their fantasy run and beat Tampa Bay, that regular season, you know what the team rule was?
You wouldn't have to practice.
No morning skate if you win. That's like everyone that wants to say Tortorella is too old school. That is super progressive thinking as a coach. And the Bills didn't get to practice when they went and played the Jets in Detroit because of the snowstorm. They ran them out of the building. Like, it wasn't even close. But we hear that the Sabres practices stunk, and Don Granato was running practices the right way. And 2 weeks after running his practices, imagine that things started to.
You almost seen players, like, you could tell that they're in better shape. I always thought they could tell, like, they were dogging it at the end of the game. They were not conditioned.
Yeah, they started playing 60-minute games again, which is part of why they were successful. They weren't finding ways to lose.
Yeah, that's why they were losing. Yeah, they didn't have the conditioning to play full games.
Well, and we talked all the time that they would play back to back, and there was that Philly series that just felt like the backbreaker. That feels like it should have been when they, let go of Kruger. When they played back to back matinees against Philly, didn't score. You get run out of the building, and then you come back the next day and play worse. And like the Sabres would play back to back against a team like Boston and lose, and come back 24 hours later and beat them. And forget just physical conditioning. There's a certain psyche or mental attitude. You say all the time, Justin, that after a loss, Granato was mad.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't do this right. We weren't good there. Instead of saying, we did some things right. If you just knew what we were trying to do, if you were as smart as we were, you would see that we actually played a very good game, that they lost 4-0 and got outshot 42-11.
It's big. We know better than the fans' energy coming out of
Correct.
there.
And
just
then
gotta
Granato
remember
would be
the
like-
things you got to do to get shots on net.
And then Granato would be like, no, that was bad. We weren't good enough in these areas. We need to fix some things. And then come out the next day and go toe-to-toe with the Boston Bruins and beat them.
He was even highly critical in wins.
Yeah.
They're good to see.
That's some big Don energy right there.
Yeah. And that's a really that first game against the Bruins. That was a slugfest. They got dominated the first period, and they came out and they went toe to toe and they won the game. Right,
3-1.
they battled back. Yeah, and that was pretty telling.
It's funny how good they were against the Bruins this year, considering out of all the teams they played regularly.
Well, they also played the
Well, they
Bruins
played them in the last
every
half.
game after Kruger was gone. Every
True.
game
Yeah.
they played against the Bruins.
That's what it was kind of promising about it. Like he was playing, he had the team playing so much better. And obviously they weren't great by any stretch of the right, but they were so much improved without all their best players.
With Dustin Tokarski and Michael
and they're
Hauser.
playing
They
their
were
7th
winning
and 9th
games.
string goalies.
Yeah,
They had the goalie coach at the bench for a few games.
they looked like they were actually approaching NHL team caliber.
And how many games did they lose in that stretch? I don't have the numbers in front of me. They were just like 1-goal games.
Yeah.
And they were just like a relevant power play away from being a feared team.
Yeah.
And who runs that? Jack Eichel.
Yeah.
I
said really early on, right on the Twitter machine, how lost the power play looked without him. And that shouldn't be the case. Someone should be able to step up. Like, whether that's Dahlin, someone's got to quarterback the power play. But, man, when he was not on the ice, it was noticeably different that power play was lost.
When you got him on the left side and Olsen on the right side, if I have that right,
Yep.
then we gotta worry about both those elite caliber shots, right? You can't just if you're just leading all day, you're leading right to Olsen, and he was always afraid to like shoot it, like he didn't shoot enough.
Yep.
And I think Dahlin's capable of quarterbacking that power play, and he was in a sense, but they didn't have the other threat on the other side, and it's like no, you shoot it. No, I like you should shoot it. I don't want to shoot it. You shoot it.
Wasn't it another power play where Dahlin had that keep in at the blue line? Went to the right, bounced it off the boards to himself, walked into the slot and got a goal or something, or set up a goal backdoor. But
he's filthy.
I am encouraged by Donato being hired, not because we've been saying all along, like, I don't know, other than pedigree, what other coaches would have brought to this team that equals success.
You really
and I'm looking for maybe real answers.
No,
like here, you guys can totally have a rebuttal to that. I don't know what Bruce Boudreau, who I would not have been upset if they hired at all, or John Tortorella, or Rick Tocchet, or Gerard Gallant. What do they bring to the job other than pedigree to prove that they're going to be a better coach than Don Granato?
Are any of them known for developing players, or are they more known for taking?
I think Gallant in his career has done a great job with development, but in spite of that,
I've never heard of Boudreau being a coach that develops players. I mean,
it feels like
Boudreau couldn't get Anaheim over the hump 5 years in a row.
Yeah, I feel like Boudreau had trouble getting the young guys in Minnesota to succeed. Once kind of they started to crest over that hill of the elite stars, feels like Boudreau, that's when
he's the guy you put with.
Because he got let go for Mike Yeo, right? Didn't Boudreau get let go? Didn't Bruce Boudreau get let go in Minnesota for Mike Yeo?
That sounds right.
Wasn't that his most recent coaching job? Because Barry Trotz was in Washington. So I think that Boudreau most recently coached Minnesota.
Boudreau got replaced in Anaheim by the guy he replaced with Randy Carlyle.
Yes.
I don't even think that Granato being hired over Tocchet or Boudreau or whoever else, I don't think it signifies a rebuild either.
No.
I think it's just the players they have in the team as it is. Like, they're just young. I don't think it's time for a Bruce Boudreau. It's time for you need it. It's not because I don't think it signifies a rebuild. Just the team's young. That's the coach they need right now. Not because they're going to go through a rebuild and trade the entire fucking thing. It made the most sense. The team loved him. I could tell by the press conference. When they did the end of the season press conference, this guy's coming back. The way the players talked about him.
Yeah.
And the way you could tell by his demeanor, he was confident. He fucking knew. Like, I just bossed this shit. The way he was, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't think the Sabres are going to rebuild. I don't. I'm sure they're listening to Officer Eichel. I mean, keeping the door open and everything. But like, he's not going to be traded. I think they're him away from being a good team, being a player. With the way they played under Granato, they're Eichel away from being a playoff contender. And I think they need to. I feel bad talking about it again, but what
everyone else is talking about it constantly on the other side.
I guess.
I know I wasn't here when you guys recorded a couple weeks ago, so I want to go on the record that I 100% disagree with your Eichel trade takes, and I think that you guys may be the only people in Western New York media who think he's not getting traded, because and that's fine. I'm not telling you not to have an opposing take. But I'm saying it seems like there's too much smoke. There's too many fires.
We've even heard recently from the
but it's the easiest
outlets.
smoke. Like, it's like,
yeah, but I'm like, you're telling me there's not a single, not Joe Yerdon, not Chad, not any of these guys. No one wants to be the guy who says he's not getting traded. No one wants to write that story for clicks. It's because everybody thinks he's getting traded.
You just sent me a tweet last week of some guy saying, the longer this goes on, it was a local Buffalo media guy that said, the longer this goes on, looks like Eichel's not getting moved.
I would believe it if it wasn't for the fact that it's an expansion draft in 7 days.
They would trade the rhetoric. We had to change the rhetoric.
Elliot Friedman said it feels like we need to start changing the rhetoric on the Eichel trade talk. Because a lot of the reasons that are being given, the Sabres want too much. Good. Hang up the phone if it's not a great deal. Because like I said before, you do not have to trade him. If the deal isn't great, you don't have to trade him.
One of my biggest things, when you were here, I kept saying that. I think 4 times. I think I said it. Like when you're a GM, your pot at the end of the rainbow is a 1-2 punch of center, and the Sabres have that. And you know what? We're going to trade these fucking assholes, and we're going to start with 2 19-year-olds that we don't know anything about and hope they're the same thing. Like, this makes sense.
I guess that also assumes...
And the Sabres literally hold... I'm not trying to interrupt you, I apologize. The Sabres literally hold all of the cards in the situation. Even with Reinhardt. Like,
he's still an RFA.
He's an RFA. He owns his rights. If someone offers him a matchable offer sheet, he's stuck here long term. But I don't know. Sabres literally hold all the cards in the situations here. But
sure. And they don't have to get rid of either of those guys.
Yeah.
They can hold on to them as assets until their contracts run out.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to try to win with 2 guys who don't want to be here?
We don't even know that. Like,
I think at least in Jack's case, he's been pretty transparent about it. It's not. Is it think?
Well,
is Jack
newest
thinking
report
he's
is
unhealthy?
that the team and Eichels were close to resolution.
No,
about his
on the injury situation, not on the
which is
contract.
the-
In
which is
his
what hanging up.
press conference, and it was brought up initially in the trade rumors. The first thing it says, "Well, you guys got to have something to write about, right?" Like just insinuating.
He also, apropos of nothing and not being prompted, said, "I look forward to playing hockey next year, wherever that may be." People in the middle of 10-year contracts don't say that
It is
shit
a
for no
player
reason.
with 0 cards in his deck, or 1 card in his deck, and that was it.
Yeah, then why would he play it otherwise?
He had to force the Sabres' hand on the situation because it was not known that the public was going on. And immediately after that press conference, all this shit poured out. Because he had 1 card. He had to force the Sabres' hand situation. He made him look bad briefly, but then once more news came out on what it was and the injury and the surgery, he was like, oh, maybe the Sabres don't look so bad. And I don't know. It's a player cornered with no moves. I'm sure he's probably coached by his agent to say it. And like it's I don't know. To me, it's just 101.
My initial reaction was, man, the Sabres won't let him get this surgery. What are you doing? It's your star player.
It's everyone's reaction, right?
I heard,
what fucking idiots.
Right.
Then you hear it's like, oh, wait.
Then you hear everyone saying that no NHL player has ever had it. You hear one of the reasons that there are GMs, it's being reported that GMs do not want to trade for him right now because they're not sure about the injury and they don't want him to get the procedure. And I'm not saying the Sabres come out of this smelling like roses because their all-star player is pissed off.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't, that's not it. But they also, like, I don't blame him now for not letting him get a disc replacement in his neck that's never been done to a hockey player before.
Is he frustrated? Obviously, it's a very frustrating thing. Yeah, he's frustrated, but it's like these things happen. It's part of the business. It's in the contract they negotiated. I don't think both players want to be out here. When they're talking to the media for the 6th straight year about the same bullshit, and it's annoying. You could see it in Sam's face. I thought he was being a poly little bitch. When you hear Granato, I heard Granato talking. I hear hold it for tone. He's excited. He's upbeat, but he's got to go talk to fucking Mike Harrington, Paul Hamilton again about the same bullshit. These guys that just dog on him.
Well, that's true in every market, though. I mean, the Buffalo compared to even Toronto or New York City, they don't have it half as bad here as they have in some other places.
I think the players.
But if you want to tell me that guys don't want to be out of here, I don't think you've listened to a single player who's left Buffalo the last 2 years telling me they don't want to be out of here. Because every single guy leaves this team, they're like, man, I couldn't fucking wait to leave that place.
I will concede, Jeff, that I'm not saying Jack plays out the rest of his contract here. If there's still a shitstorm at the trade deadline and he's playing well and they stink, I get it. Or next year, next offseason. I'm just saying.
Yeah, don't get me wrong.
At this point, why would he be traded before October?
I don't think he's being traded right now for that reason. You got the injury. People don't want to give you. And obviously, if you're not getting what you want, unless someone comes in and offers you a buku trade, never take a trade that isn't worth the player.
Don't get
absolutely. But I think it's a when, not an if. Maybe it's not July. Maybe it's not 2021. But I find the odds increasingly low and low with each passing month that Jack Eichel plays out his contract in Buffalo without being traded.
The thing is, too, if you're Jack Eichel, why do you want to be traded this year? You want to be traded next year. Like, it's kind of because he controls it next year.
When your limited no trade clause comes in.
And obviously it makes sense for the Sabres to trade him now, but they have until July 1st next year. So there's even a window to trade him before that kicks in.
And it still doesn't make sense for him in a different regard because because he's injured, other GMs immediately knock down his value. And because he's disgruntled, or the narrative he's disgruntled, that it knocks down your value.
Well, if you're the Sabres,
player wants out, and if you're the GM from the Ducks, and you call on Eichel, and the Sabres ask for a boatload, they're like, "Fuck you! He doesn't even want to be there. I'm not giving you all that. He wants out anyway." The leverage lies with the other GM. So if you are the Sabres right now, it's not hot time to trade him because there's all these things driving his value down.
If you're Buffalo, how confident are you that he comes back after the surgery and plays like himself? Because if you think, if you ask your team doctors, like, what are the odds this significantly hinders his playing ability? And they say, well, it might. Do you try to trade him now before he comes back to the ice and someone says like, hey, wait a minute, who's that guy? That's another side
But
of it.
from what I gather, surgery's not happening. It would happen by now, correct?
Well, sure, but I mean, even just whatever procedure he has, whatever lingering effects, neck issues are not. He didn't break his finger and had to have it reset. This could be something that bothers him for the rest of his career or a significant portion of it. Yeah. I'm just saying, if the Sabres think that Jack Eichel will be hampered by this, and it's the kind of thing where, well, he takes another bad hit, goes into the boards, he's out for another month without a star again. He gets hit the wrong way, he's out for a year, and then we finally have to let him have the surgery. Where does his value go? It's not at the peak. Jack Eichel's trade value would have been much higher before last season, for example, before any of this happened, because he's a superstar player, locked into team control for a long period of time, top 5 center in the league. Where is it now, and where do you see it going? The Sabres have to navigate all of that while also not wanting to get rid of the guy who they sold the farm for in the first place. Because the entire, if they don't tank for Jack Eichel, how much easier is this conversation to have? They tank for Eichel or McDavid, they waste a couple years, they build assets to get specifically this guy. If Sam Reinhart's having neck surgery and people are calling on him, I bet you he's gone already. No offense to Sam. I think Sam's a great player. Mm-hmm. But because it's Jack and because of who he is and because of what he means to the team and because you've been bad for so long, you know what it says to the fans. There's a lot of other things that go into it.
I don't think it's as simple as if it's Sam Reinhart, he's gone because it's not Jack Eichel. It's just the same. Because if you're trading for an injured neck on Sam Eichel, I keep saying Sam fucking Eichel and Sam Reinhart, it's just still another damaged goods player. People are going to be afraid of you. If you just threw 9 more unknowns into it. It's just a lot of unknowns about a very serious injury. So that's the main reason I don't think it gets traded. People are going to want him to come back, see him healthy, and then shit, you got a healthy Eichel on that, any kind of production out of an Eichel on that team, they're going to be good. And maybe they're fixing the problem. Then hey, maybe I'll stick around here. And then you're changing the whole narrative and everything.
I just say there's always some sucker. The Oilers just traded no salary retained for a 37-year-old Duncan Keith. Mm-hmm. There's always some sucker who'll give you what you want if you wait long enough.
Well, and if the Sabres also, one of the things, the Sabres most likely are not going to make the playoffs next year. I mean, both Stanley Cup final teams are in their division, whatever. They're in a really tough. If they come out next year, though, and somehow go, I keep saying 20-10 to start the season, everything changes because now they're winning. They're in the playoff hunt. If they go 20-10, they're in a playoff spot or close to it because they would have to beat these good teams to be there. But all of a sudden, everything shifts. The whole like I remember big time when the Sabres finished exactly 500. It might have been Murray's first year or second year with O'Reilly here, and they were talking about how their goal was to get to 500, and they did. They ended up like 32, and that's what 8 or whatever. Like they weren't officially 500. Mike Schopp was really big on them. They lost 10 more games than they won, but with the loser points, they got 500% of the points out there, 50% of the points available. And if they can have one of those kind of victory years, where if they're having a good year, you know, they're going to need to blow the doors off to impress Sam Reinhart and keep him around. But for Eichel's sake, the narrative totally changes if they're successful. Mm-hmm. And successful doesn't mean making a cup run.
But what kind of spot is Sam in, though? So he just had the best year of his career, right? He's in a position to get paid right now, to get his monies. And, like, if he takes, you know, he's got to take he's Sabres would trade him or he takes a 1-year deal from them to prove it to me. But then he doesn't have as good as a year. Or he gets a pretty bad injury. Like, he's got to get his money. He's in a position where, like, do I take a chance? Do I get paid?
And the one person on his team he's got to look at, because if you take Sam's numbers over a full season, it's comparable to what this person did in a contract year, is Jeff Skinner.
Yeah.
That's probably what he's thinking.
I feel like I'm living 2010 Bills discourse over again. I feel like I'm trapped back when the Bills were bad every year, and we just had to keep trying to reconcile that they might have a clue what they're doing. And every time we do this to ourselves, I just can't help but feel like we're not close yet. We don't have... I like Don Granato. I don't think this team is rounding that corner yet. And we're... Whether Jack stays this year or not, I don't know that it fixes it. And I would almost rather, and this is not what I think they will do, this is almost just rather my personal opinion, I would rather, if there is a good deal out there, I would rather just do it. Because the only thing that's going to be talked about for this team, unless they win, unless they make the playoffs, the only thing that's going to be talked about for this team for the rest of time is when is Jack Eichel leaving. It is going to dominate the team, it's going to dominate the media, it's going to dominate the discourse, it's going to dominate the locker room. Every single guy who walks in here is going to be asked about it. Jack's be asked about it 40 times a year.
And to go back to what we were going back and forth earlier. I'm not saying you're wrong that I'm not saying he doesn't want to be out here. I'm just saying it's all speculation. We haven't heard it. I heard this. This is what's going on. Even when you hear Drager or Freeman or everybody else talk, everything is just opinion based. I think, I feel. In my opinion, you don't hear it. My sources telling me I heard this.
I mean, now you're just picking the semantics of whether they say my sources or I've heard.
But if I can give an example,
feel is different than what I heard. But this is happening.
Give an example.
And it's like if you're buying a house, or if you're dirty GMs out there looking to buy houses, and I say, oh, dude, I think Jeff's selling his house. I'm going to call him to see if he's really selling it. I'm sure teams are calling Sabres about it because it's all over the fucking. Like I gotta check into this. I'm sure Chris Jury called. I'm sure the fucking teams are calling to look into it. I'm sure they're fielding the calls. I don't know if it's happening. I just I'm not that naive to think. I'm just saying we don't really know. I'm not that naive, right? I'm not that dumb. But
I guess my other point is that if you're concerned that it hasn't happened yet, so the longer it gets, the more unlikely it is. I would normally agree with that because the longer you get into an off season. The wrench is that next week there's going to be a lot of teams that are getting a lot of money off the books.
Yeah, and I spent a lot of time a few weeks ago messing around cap friendly, and the Sabres are in a weird spot. They have a lot of cap room right now, but they have a lot of players they got to sign. They got to sign Middlestad. They got to sign Reinhardt. So there's not a lot of, and once you sign those players, there's not much room for a goalie.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. Is this team? It feels like the Sabres goaltender is the new Bills quarterback. Yeah. To bring it back to my point, so we have everything. If only we had a guy who could throw the ball, or no, well, we have a lot of things. If only we had a guy who could stop the puck. Mm-hmm. And this isn't. I think Ullmark's been fine, but he can never stay healthy. Carter Hutton literally can't see a puck, and I liked Tokarski as much as the next guy, but he's a lifetime backup and AHL guy. You need something. Is UPL there yet? I sure hope so, because he's about to be by default.
Who just can't stay healthy,
yeah.
like Ullmark.
And you get trapped in this endless loop of, well, we have Jack Eichel, but no one can defend because we hold on to Ristolainen and no one can stop the puck. And you can win a lot of games without a top tier goal. You don't need Carey Price to win for sure. But you need something.
Back to the point about what these sources know, what these experts know, Jeff, because I was listening to the Instigators. Dare Drager was on, and they were talking to him, and Craig Rivet goes, we keep talking about the trades. We keep talking about Eichel and Reinhardt and Ristolainen. Well, what about what's going on with Rasmus Dahlin? What was Craig Rivet asking about? His contract. Yeah. He's due an extension.
Sure.
Drager goes on for 15 seconds and goes, well, yeah, I'm sure teams are calling about the availability to trade for a player like Rasmus Dahlin. And Riv's like, no, I mean his contract extension.
Well, I mean...
But that's what I mean, Jeff. What are they going to say? Like, if Darren Drager goes on and goes, I don't know if Eichel's getting traded. I haven't heard anything. He's fired.
Sure.
If he says I haven't heard anything, he's fired. What everyone is doing is taking advantage of the buzz that is around. I like your point where there's smoke, there's fire. Yes, I 100% think there's a disagreement between Jack Eichel and the Buffalo Sabres. But I think as more and more information is coming out, Jack Eichel might also be realizing, shit, no team is really going to let me have this procedure. Or maybe that might be it, right? He goes up on the podium, he talks to the media, and for the first time, the media and the fans hear that he would like to have a procedure done, and the team won't let him. And the firestorm starts, and then all of a sudden, more and more information keeps coming out that doesn't look like any team would be fired up about him getting a procedure done. So it might be one of these things where he's kind of realizing, that's just, I'm going to have to wait this out anywhere, so I don't need, I don't know. I would not blame Jack Eichel if he walked into the general manager's office and says, I want to trade. I don't blame him one bit. We don't know that that's happened. We do not know that that's happened.
Yeah. I'm just saying it's too early, even for me, just playing the other side of it. It's too early to say one way or the other because the first domino of the offseason didn't fall until today when Parise and Suter got bought out. Yep. That's the first domino. We'll see what other moves happen from there.
There's a lot happening pretty soon.
Because now we're going to have protected lists. I think they're officially out tomorrow. I know there's some talks about players who are or aren't moving, no movement clauses. There was talk about Duchesne and talk about a lot of other guys over the course of the day. I was busy today, so I didn't get to read a lot of the discourse. But
Duchesne's a good name because he was getting traded from Colorado 5 ever before it happened.
Yeah. Now he's going to be left unprotected by Nashville.
Right. That's what I mean. So, Duchesne was leaving Colorado for 4 seasons before he left Colorado.
Back to what I was saying about how they're in a weird spot money-wise. There's going to be some kind of trades between the Sabres going on soon so they don't lose a good player like Tage in the expansion draft, or they don't want to lose Rasmus Asplund or Will Borgen, so they're going to move somebody out so they can open up more slots on that and just open up room for money because they don't. You sign a lot of those players, and there's not much money left to bring anybody else in, even a goalie. We're talking like $5 million left on the cap. I was farting around. I was lowballing contracts, and I didn't have much money left.
Sure.
There's going to be something. I think Risto's gone. I think you'll see Risto flipped for a younger, cheaper defenseman that fits the same style.
Man, I hope so.
Yeah, I think it's going to happen finally.
Who's the team out there who's gonna do it? Who's going to be willing to?
Well,
Because the
Sabres-
problem is
the
there's a lot of
Sabres
teams that are
could
cash strapped.
The Sabres could eat half the salary because it's only this season. So the Sabres could eat $2.25 million and not be upset about that. You know what I mean? Because he's making $5.5. The Sabres
Sure, but I guess at that point I'm worried. So at that point, how much money are you even saving on the deal? If you eat half the contract,
$2.5 million.
well, you have to, but someone has to be paid to replace him.
Sure,
you don't get
but
to
if you're
leave a
saying
void
a younger
there.
defenseman, it's not going to be a $2.
No, but it's probably $1 million. So you're saving $1 million. I guess you're saving $1 million. Yeah.
You're saving $1.5 million. You got younger, and you have hopefully more term in a contract. And I mean, it's an option. You could. I know $1.5 million is not a huge savings, but it's an option.
The other point is in this place too. Is he really getting traded? Point two is there's a lot of teams that are in a similar cap situation to where the Sabres are right now. There's not a whole lot of teams that can, without giving up some pretty good assets, be like, oh yeah, we can fit Jack Eichel into the salary cap, because there's not a lot of teams that can move things. I mean, except for the Minnesota Wild, who unloaded $15 million off their cap today all at once, and they have $13 million in dead cap next season.
I don't know how if you're the LA Kings, how you're going to fit another $10 million contract in your cap, because you got Kopitar. I think Doughty makes 11. Kopitar makes somewhere near it. They're still paying John the Quick weird money.
There's a lot of talks that Quick would be coming back. And
it's like take it on salary
dump. It solves the Sabres problem of needing a goaltender. And
does it though?
It does.
It
does
really?
not at all. Because
he's
he's
not great.
37. Isn't he really old now?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying
bandit in a bullet hole.
The Sabres need a goalie.
Call him Jonathan
I guess
Quick.
he physically does play goaltender. We do love our Team USA goaltenders here in Buffalo.
Sure does.
He was on a lot of those same teams with Millsy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh man, there's no easy answer to this, and I'm very curious to see where it plays out. The discourse is tiring a little bit, but it'll be interesting to see what actually happens.
I can't even go on Twitter anymore. I can't deal with it. I get so frustrated. I go on there and stoke the fire every now and then. When I hear Craig Button was on the Howard Simon show a couple days ago, and when I hear Button talk, I hear just like a lot. This makes sense. Finally, something logical coming out of like a talking head's mouth, and it's like, this makes so much sense to me. Go back and find it. It was like a few days ago, but whenever I hear the guy talk, it's like, this is it. Like, he's going to be a Sabre. Like, I don't. Yeah, and I don't think in the narrative they're going to take lesser deals just to get him out of here and just to make a trade. And no, if you're not getting the team's best prospect, we're not doing the deal. It's not worth it. It's the best player, one of the best players we've had in franchise history. Outside Hasek and Gilbert Perreault, but this guy's an outlier. Like, you don't get this guy, and they got him. And they got him for the next 5 years, contractually. If they lose this guy, it just shows that they can't handle superstars. Or it happened, I don't know, but it has happened across all different ownerships, too. It's happened with Briere and Jury. It's happened with Hasek. They couldn't even keep the guy they traded Hasek for. It's happening now. It's just fucking crazy. It's like, I don't know how much more I could take of it.
Yeah, that's one of those things though that I keep saying is you look across the Sabres history and it's bad with good spots. And a lot of what they have had is because of luck, not because of anything that they've actually built or anything. And this has gone through their whole history. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know you all have heard the story about the draft wheel in the 1970 draft where somebody misread the wheel and was about to give the first overall pick, which would have been Perreault, to Vancouver, but Imlach or somebody else with the team was paying attention to the draft wheel and was like, wait a second, this ain't right. We got the pick. I mean, Vancouver almost ended up with Perreault.
Shit.
At that point, there would be no, at least entire French connection. So probably no 1975 playoff or Stanley Cup finals.
Yeah.
I mean, Hasek, if Chicago knew what they had, they would have kept him. They probably would have traded Belfour before Hasek.
Yeah, they were behind. I tell the story all the time that Hasek was sitting behind Ed Belfour. He wouldn't have played in Chicago. Never would have been riding the pine. And he comes to Buffalo and
I just can't wait for it all to end. I'm so sick of hearing about it.
However, it does end too.
I'm sick of hearing about it, but I'm also infatuated with it. I can't tell you how many times I passed Steve at work.
It's a terrible media cycle.
I can't tell you how many times I passed Steve at work and totally unprompted. Another thing about the cycle thing. It just was always on my head.
There's a possibility out there too that if Eichel gets traded tomorrow, I could be excited about it. Like Mike Schopp keeps saying, like I'm ready for them to market the new exciting young team.
Yeah.
But he's like, I'm not ready to buy it, but I understand. Like I could get excited. About
that's back to what I was talking about a little bit ago. Is like I'm tired. I don't want. It's going to dominate all discourse until it's done one way or the other.
But there's so few deals that would get me excited like that.
There's only one deal I'm excited about, and it's involving Quentin Byfield.
Correct.
That's it.
It's so rare that there could be a trade that when these pieces come back, I would be like, yes. Like it's either a superstar for superstar trade that's not gonna, that you're able to trade for, Barzal and some pieces, but that's never gonna happen. Barzal's not gonna get traded by the Islanders. They don't think Eichel's a big enough upgrade from what they have. So what it is it's a young prospect that you think or know is going to be outstanding and a good roster player that is good already. Then I could get excited, but when Dubois was on the market from Columbus, apparently Anaheim said Zegras is untouchable. Well, then I'm hanging up the phone, which is what Jarmo did. He didn't want any part of that. Mm-hmm. And then he found Patrick Laine. And, I think Laine is a better player than Trevor Zegras. I know Zegras is still young, but like, I don't know.
Present day Laine is
another thing. One of the better GMs in the league is demanding a team's best prospect for Pierre-Luc Dubois.
Right.
It is not Jack Eichel.
No, not even close.
So Jack Eichel's going to command way more.
Yep.
It's funny. If Eichel goes to LA, he's going to such a worse situation too, because they think all their best players they might be good for like a year.
They're old.
Kopitar is not far away from retired. Doughty's not far from retired. Quick's pretty much retired. Dustin Brown's an old fart. The entire team's so old.
And someone like Alex Iafallo would probably be coming back.
Yeah.
In the trade.
Yeah. Probably.
People will love that.
Talking about Minnesota today, like they clear all the cap space. Like, oh, maybe they're making room for Jack Eichel. There's no one on Minnesota's roster that would even begin. You could give me their 3 best players, and I'm not interested in trading with Minnesota for Jack Eichel.
You got some nice pieces over there.
Nope, not interested. One of them is Matt Dumba. Sure, he's a great player. Not interested. Doesn't move the needle.
You got some nice young talent.
Doesn't move the needle.
What was that EK guy? What's his name?
Joel Eriksson Ek. No,
he just signed a huge extension.
He signed a huge deal. Yeah, they are way overpaying that dude.
I was thinking he's the best thing play. I was
not making like $6 million a year or something stupid. He's a good player. Yeah, damn.
Sending Kirill Kaprizov back, then we can have a short discussion here. And even he's older because he was an old rookie.
Yeah, he's 24, 25, kind of.
Almost Jack's age.
Yeah. I like Kaprizov.
I do too.
But that's not moving the needle. No.
The point is, if they trade him, I don't know that the trade is ever going to feel like it's enough. Because
but you also
the
can't
four
trade
of us
for 80 cents on the dollar. You can't do that either.
Sure.
That's been Justin and Marty Biron's line. It's got to be.
Yeah, but I mean, in what trade where, again, the player and the other owners in a theoretical Eichel trade that would happen anytime in the next 12 months, the Sabres don't have the leverage because it's rumored that he wants out, he's hurt, his value is down. There is not a trade that I think is going to happen. I'd be surprised if I'm wrong. If they do trade him, it's going to feel like they got ripped off. Even if they get a good deal, I would be surprised if it feels like, well, like, we look at it in hindsight, it's like, I don't know if it's going to be as bad as the O'Reilly trade because that looked bad from the day it was announced. But I think it's never going to be enough, and maybe it's okay if you get 90% back. I would be happy if they got 85% of Jack's value back because that's usually not how it works in these superstar trades.
I mean, the only way it really looks even decent for the Sabres is if Jack comes back good enough to be able to be traded, but then just falls off a cliff.
But here's the best thing about the Sabres having no leverage, right? But here's the best thing about that situation is that they don't have to fucking trade him.
Sure. Yeah, there's no time limit here.
The Sabres are really good at dealing with players that want to be here and trading them. Like, look at Rasmus. Sorry, bud. You're in contract. You're a fucking Sabre.
Yep.
Like they just
year after year, put them out there.
They obviously don't give a shit. They doesn't want to be here because look at Rasmus. Look at it's just I don't know.
We don't know who else there is.
They're doing a Rasmus, and he's not even a high profile player. He's not.
Right.
It's just great. We'll see. It's so crazy. It's so polarizing. I just can't wait to be right. That's all.
Well, he's got a long contract. You never know.
I got a few bets on this. I got a few bets going on, and they're all surrounding 11-day power play donations.
Oh,
You can also donate to Justin's 11-day power play or make a bet with us on Twitter in the form of you donate money, and then we don't give you anything.
yeah, that sounds about right.
I can donate a small amount.
Does anyone have any thoughts on the upcoming expansion draft, which will be a week from a week from the day of this podcast?
Float him a pick and get him to take Jurgensen's. Done.
I thought
There
that'd be
you
a
go.
fun exercise. I got to find a website here.
Another guy. Oh yeah! Thank God we've got another year worth of Jurgensen's. I'm so excited to see him
Float
come
him
back.
a 4th round pick and make him take Jurgensen's. Come on, don't you want the Latvian locomotive?
I mean, obviously, there's going to be guys who are ineligible to be picked because of movement clauses. There's going to be guys who they'll obviously protect, but
Like Rasmus Ristolainen. He will be protected.
they sure
he
will.
will be.
They will absolutely protect. They love that guy.
Well, you can't lose it for nothing, right? You have to get something for him. You can't just he's a quality asset you can get pieces for, so you can't just let him go.
Oh, I agree with that. I'm just saying they should have tried to move him for an asset a while ago, and they didn't.
I think they just overvalue him a lot.
They do overvalue him significantly. I'm dragging this out because Justin is trying to solve a captcha right now, and it's fantastic.
Do you ever just overthink the hell out of those things?
Absolutely.
Like
watching you click on crosswalks on this monitor.
Traffic light somewhere in there.
I got one last week that I've never seen before, which was it just put a picture of a cat on a screen, and it said, "Draw a box around this cat."
Yeah.
Yeah. And I did.
Yeah.
It
And
got
I
me
did.
through.
Good job, Jeff.
Justin actually
I'm
pulled
not
out
a robot, beep boop.
Justin also actually pulled out a magnifying glass to look at the captcha, to see the grid, to see what.
And to make sure the crosswalk wasn't in the adjacent square.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's just a hair of it is in that square, do you click that square?
Right, that's the big debate.
That's
here.
when you start sweating.
And then meanwhile, the captcha's like, fucking robot. I knew it.
Got him.
Got another one, guys. I hate these fucking sites.
Well, now you got through it, and now he's not dealing with the captcha. He's just dealing with the site.
Will there be someone
It's a
that
different site now, too.
Is there someone who you'll be disappointed if they get taken?
Tage Thompson.
R2?
I don't think they would take R2, but I would be disappointed.
I think they'll protect him. I think they expose Rasmus Asplund and Colin Miller and Zemgus. I think it's exposed.
I'll be sad about Asplund. I don't understand why they would take him in that situation, though. He's a good piece.
They got a center that can replace him in R2 Ristolainen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if they want to take Cody Eakin. That guy sucks.
And they still have Cody Eakin and Zemgus Girgensons to play fourth line center too. So there's
Holy
that.
fuck. Why does Jack Eichel want off this team anyway? That's great depth behind him. Those guys are great.
So how does it work? For example, Sam Reinhart is a RFA. Do you have to protect that?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Uses one of your spots.
So Skinner's automatically protected. Eichel's protected.
Yep.
Right? Okposo's Forrest protected. You're going to protect Olofsson.
Yep.
Actually,
I don't think Oposo is forced, is he? Because I've been saying all along that he has the no movement clause.
He didn't even know. Remember, he got asked in his press conference about it. He didn't even know.
But,
He's that guy to look
someone
into
was
it.
talking about it. They said that he could be exposed.
Well, he can if he agrees to waive his no movement clause.
I don't think
He's
he
got a
has
modified.
one.
Is it a
Yeah.
modified? Well, I guess it depends on what the terms are of the
Right.
modified no movement
Right.
clause.
That's
then.
what I'm
Okay.
wondering.
Well, they're not going to protect him if it's. I mean, and I would belabor this point. Nothing against Kyle. There's absolutely no reason you would protect him at this point in his career.
Yeah, but
no
I heard he's
reason
only
at all.
taking home $1.5 million this year.
Oh yeah,
so-
and you got the capper capture and you taxes and escrow. Yeah, he's getting fucking left wide open. Go to Seattle.
Yep.
Get off the salary cap.
Anyways.
I just thought not cute play. You can leave Olofsson open. I think it's. He's a great power play player, but he's just 5-on-5. He should never be above the
If
third
I'm
line.
Seattle, I'd take him in a second.
He should never go above the third
Like,
line.
yeah, that's the thing, though. They would take him and play him on the third line.
He's this year's Jonathan Marchessault.
Yeah.
That they take him, put him on the third line, and he scores 30 goals on the power
Yeah.
play alone.
That's what
Marchessault
Marchessault was in Florida, and they're like, please take him. They said, okay.
Yep.
And now Marchie's a top 3 guy.
Yep.
The good thing is you don't have to worry about any of your goalies because they all suck.
Max Pacioretty, Mark Stone. But yes, they're so good. They're so good. And the other part about Vegas is like they traded 3 picks for Thomas Tatar and didn't give any shits about it. We're going to trade our first, second, and third round pick for Thomas Tatar. And then they still ended up winning, and it doesn't matter. They pipeline be damned. They're still good, and they're good, and they've been good, and it's just when I hear
And they got away with trading Nick Suzuki.
when I hear things like got to restock the cupboards and you need prospects, I want to just punch myself in the face because it's just not true. It is important. It's important if you want to be a good team for a long time. If you want to win a cup, it's not necessarily true at all.
Well, Las Vegas is taking the LA Rams strategy of who cares if we make if we mess things up long term. If we win the short term, no one's going to care.
Right.
And I respect it.
Somehow for
I respect it a lot.
for the Knights, it's 4 years, which is an eternity in the NHL to be good because of the amount of parity and turnaround.
Yeah.
And they've been
It is almost surprising they haven't won the cup at this point.
Right.
I can't believe they got bounced by Montreal.
Correct.
So the Sabres don't even have a goalie to protect right now.
Negative.
They don't even have a goalie to protect.
They don't
So
have
how does
one
that
to
work?
protect.
Do you let it protect another player?
I don't believe so. I don't think it works like that. Although I am not an expert.
So the only one I'm a cap friendly.
Yeah.
They have a simulator, and the only player pre-checked with the NMC no movement clause is Jeff Skinner.
yeah.
That
I
can't,
posted
that can't
was-
be right then.
I posted
I guess
was wide
Eichels
open.
doesn't kick until next season.
Yeah.
We were just talking
Yes.
about it.
So we're doing Eichel, right?
Yeah.
We're doing Sam.
Yeah.
We're doing Vic.
Yeah.
We're doing Bjork.
No. I guess, yeah. I like Bjork.
They just traded for him. They're not going to want to give him up. He worked well with Granato.
4, 5. We got 5.
How many more?
We're doing Casey. I'm doing
Yeah.
Tage. That's seven
that's your 7.
forwards. Taking that. I'm taking that. No.
Yeah,
McCabe.
if you do 7 forwards, you get 3D.
You're taking this. right?
Risto, Darlene, and
So that's why I think you're
Yogi
probably trying to
Haru.
trade Rasmus before this happens. Because you can get a piece for him. You can get a piece you don't have to protect. A younger player, cheaper. You have more cap room for a goalie. I think we see Rasmus go before the expansion draft. I think that's the player. If you see trade talks heating up out of Buffalo, everyone's gonna think it's fucking. I almost said Sam Eichel again. Jack Eichel, but it's gonna be Sam. It's gonna be one of these players. It's gonna be Rich Rolainen.
I will say, while I like this, I will be surprised if they protect one of Bork or Asplund over Jake McCabe.
McCabe's a UFA. He's not even on a contract.
Yeah, he's
Is
a
he really?
UFA.
I thought he was done. I thought he had another year. Okay.
I don't think he's
well,
gonna
then,
be here.
then he'll then
So that leaves open.
Borgen's open. which is
Reputable players.
interesting.
It leaves open Borgen, which is you don't want to lose him. Asplund, and then you got Eakin and Gergensons and Okposo. And the only reason they're taking it depends on maybe Seattle's. Let's be optimistic. Maybe Seattle's got to get to the floor. We got this $6 million contract. We can buy it out in 2 years for $1 million a season. Why not? Let's be optimistic. Maybe they float him a second or third round pick.
I hope that the teams are smarter about it than they were with Vegas, because I know we were just banding about some names there, Steve.
Yeah.
People were paying a ransom to Vegas, like, please take
Alex
this
Tuck.
money. Yeah, like they got
Karlsson.
gifted, like, take this pick to pick this player who's going to be good for you kind of assets. Like, we don't want to pay this guy like Marchessault, or I hope that people are smarter about not just handing Seattle the keys to the kingdom and being like, we just need to get in better salary cap shape because we've been run by idiots for a few years. Please take this money.
Were you with us when we started to interrupt you? Carry on.
We did the show at Lockhouse with yeah.
Don Luce.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorite shows. This dude, oldest guy, right? How old is he now? He's gotta be fucking in his 90s.
He's not that old.
He's old. But I don't know. He's old. But this dude's knew everything about every player in the league. Even it's very impressive. Sorry, random fact.
No, it was good, and I remember him. And of course,
That was like a
it's
3-hour
not
episode.
a novelty, but we got the full Alex McGillney story, which is a crazy story.
It's like a 3-hour episode, and this dude just fucking popped
He's 72. I knew he wasn't that
in
old.
the world's hottest distillery.
I love that place. I miss it there.
Yeah, I know.
Glad to go back.
So we do think this is a fair protection list, right? That's probably what happens. I'd imagine.
So they don't have to protect Russolainen, which is nice because he's too young.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
And guys like Cousins, Jack Quinn, the more recent draft picks.
Bristol's gone. He's gone within the next week. He's gone before the 23rd. That's the draft, right? 23rd is the draft, I believe.
It's a week from what's tomorrow? Yeah, the 23rd. It's next Wednesday. For those of you who are listening at whatever random day.
Bristol's gone. He's going to Jersey. He's going to Jersey for Mileswood.
Wait, what?
I'm all about it.
Wait,
I don't
what
think it's
day?
happening, but I'll take it. Next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday is the 21st.
Okay, close enough. What's 2 days amongst friends? Am I right? I do think they'll end up going 6-4. I don't know what forward I'd say though.
You're going to risk losing one of these young, skilled forwards for A guy
Who is their death on defense, though? They have no, especially if you're talking about possibly trading Risto. I guess possibly trading Risto opens you up to keep Borgen.
Samuelson will
That's what I'm
probably
saying.
be a
You
full-time
trade.
NHLer.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You trade Risto for a young player you don't need to protect
Right.
and to save money. Then you can protect
Well,
Borgen.
let's say that they don't have a trade. They can work for that.
So you have-
do you lose Borgen? I mean, I'm not enamored with losing Anders Bjork. I thought he was good when he
But
was
you
here.
asked about your depth. Here we go. You have Bryson, who played significant NHL time last year, Matthias Samuelsson, and maybe Ryan Johnson, the guy that they took with 31 overall
Yeah.
from the Blues.
Well, I think I got to see Johnson.
Well, yeah.
I've heard good reviews of him
But
from those
that's
who have
your
watched him
depth.
play at Minnesota.
He could be your sixth defenseman, but also your sixth defenseman could be a scrap heap guy. It could be who did they use this past year? Why am I being dumb? Number 88. Why am I being stupid? Who did they play this past year? What defenseman did they play this past year?
Davison, Irwin.
Matt Irwin is what I think.
Irwin was 44. Number 44.
But regardless, you can find a scrap heap defenseman to be the
True.
sixth guy. But I don't know. I'm just thinking like Bryson and Samuelson will be NHLers next year probably, and not that that's great. I'm not saying their depth is set, but they have it. I mean,
I don't think it's worth losing. Bjork. In my opinion, Bjork, Thompson, or Middlestat.
I think
over,
if Donnie Meatballs has any say, Bjork's going to be protected because that's his buddy from
Yeah.
development camp.
And Casey will 100% be protected. I don't have a doubt about that. Tage is a guy who I do wonder, out of those guys, I do wonder what they think about him. I don't know what is his. He is not signed
he's still,
right now.
but he's still their save. He's still their saving grace in the Riley trade. If they lose Tage for nothing, they've traded O'Reilly for literally nothing.
Right.
I mean, the
Literally
saving grace
nothing.
has to become Ryan Johnson at this point.
Yeah,
Unless Tage
Unless
Tage
Berglund
goes
or
Josh
Sabathia
Allen
come
level
back.
of exponential development.
he developed a lot this past season.
And obviously you can leave a Pozo, that's fine. Eakin, whatever. Gergenson's whatever. And none of the guys underneath. I mean, there might be some of them might become something, but I'm not worried about losing anyone else lower down the list of salaries and forwards.
Oh, you mean you're not
It's
worried
so
about
funny that
Andrew Ogilvy?
none of the goalies have to be protected.
So weird. Do they have to protect somebody?
Don't they still have to protect UFAs and RFAs?
I don't know if you protect UFAs, but you have to protect. I've been imagining to protect RFAs because you can still lose them, right?
No, by rule, you have to protect him.
An RFA?
Yeah.
That's weird.
So
think so.
that means Borgen would have to be protected.
If I believe you have to protect your RFAs.
Yeah, so
I'm
they have to
looking.
protect. So they're definitely going 6-4. Then they have to protect Morgan.
Yeah, 'cause this seems too easy. Maybe
Yeah,
that's-
they did not auto check. Cap Friendly, an incredible website that I will never take for granted. Feel like they
No,
May have checked a few more
restricted
boxes
free
for
agents
us.
are eligible to be claimed and therefore must be protected
okay.
to protect their rights, to retain their rights.
But what if you don't want to retain their rights?
So they're not forced to protect them, is that what you just said?
Correct. I
Okay,
was wrong.
cool. Then we're good.
Okay. Cool.
Because then you would have had to talk about Tage or Bjork because they would have had to take Borg into the situation. That's okay then.
21st.
Yes.
Jeff nailed
That's
it.
next Wednesday. Yep.
21st.
You're only required to protect players with no movement clauses.
Should we do a show next week?
We should maybe
Thur-
wait till after the expansion draft.
Thursday?
Yeah, so if we do one, we should do one after the expansion draft.
And we all
Because
come-
doing a Monday show, like, hey, that's happened in 2 days. Neat. Would feel
we
a little
could
off.
have had a trade or two by then. In theory, we could have, we'll know more of an outlook of what we got, what we're working with. And we can all come with our little fun, cap-friendly rosters, and what we did and who we traded, and it could be fun. We do a whole show on that. Take about 3.5 hours.
Let's see what Don Luce is doing. That was a good show. That was a fun show. They might wrap it up for hockey for now, at least. A lot looming, though, and I know the next show will have a lot of... Maybe we don't know what the stories will be, but there will be a lot of stories to talk about. Who was or wasn't protected. You can see where the priorities of the team will lie. Who does get taken? Are there other trades? It feels like the Parise and Suter buyout may be the first domino to fall in the league. That was not the domino I expected, but now that there's money opening up and you don't open that money up for no reason. You don't bite that bullet right now for nothing. They must be planning other things.
They take a huge hit in like a season or
They
two.
do, which is why you would only do that if you think you're going to do something right now, because they have $13 million in dead cap next year now.
It's crazy.
It's a bizarre move.
Yeah.
So they must be doing something.
It's a real 5-year plan.
Yeah. Sign them on the same day and pass them on the same day. Any Bills news that we wanted to touch on? The only thing, I know Justin, you mentioned to me earlier, is there the fun thing on the internet now is whether or not we think Jerry Hughes or Cole Beasley make the roster. I would be shocked beyond compare if either of them were not on the Bills next year.
This is bringing up both media trying to create discussion. Like, is it because the Bills drafted 2 ends? Obviously, well, now they're here. They're looking to trade Jerry Hughes. No, Jerry Hughes is about to fucking retire.
Yeah, Hughes is going to be gone at some point because he's old, not because they're not pushing him out the door. If he shows up at training camp looking like an old man and gets hurt, then maybe whatever.
Addison
happens,
just restructured too, so
Yeah.
like it seems like that wouldn't be. I think they're just going to roll in with 7 defensive ends,
and they're not
going to
blitz you to death.
They're not cash strapped.
No.
They don't need to trade anybody.
They did well with that. The trade talk, listen, the number of people that want the Bills to trade for Zach Ertz. I have zero issue with Zach Ertz being on this football team. If they cut him and he's signed for a reasonable amount. People don't understand how this works. If you trade for Zach Ertz, do you know what comes with him? His $12.7 million cap hit.
Yeah, there would have to be some sort of...
People are like, well, if they trade for him and restructure, I'm like, he doesn't have to. If the Bills trade for Zach Ertz, he could restructure just like any other player could. But if you trade for Zach Ertz and say, you know what, we'd only like to pay you $3 million, not 12, you can't do that. You cannot. That's not how contracts work. When you trade for Zach Ertz's contract, he can't say, you know what, to play for the Bills, I'll take $2 million instead of $12 million. Hey, NFL rules, let's just make the Bills cap hit not $12.7 million. It doesn't work like that. Like, I know that Philadelphia might accrue penalties for trading. You can absolutely accrue cap penalties for trading players. Remember, the Bills accrued a penalty for Darius when they traded him to Jacksonville.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean that Darius's contract didn't go with him to Jacksonville. If Zach Ertz gets cut by Philadelphia and the Bills can sign him for $3 million, great.
That's a whole different discussion at that point.
But trading for him right now, you are giving up assets just to pay him a ton of money. Does not make sense to me. I don't care if it's a 7th round pick. The $12.7 million cap hit, like you said, Justin, they're not cash strapped. You know what they are if they trade for Zach Ertz? Cash strapped.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. And I guess I would be less surprised, quote unquote, by Beasley because I guess I would have been even less surprised before John Brown moved on. But he still feels at this point like a key asset to the offense. And I know he's been a bit of a maybe generous. He's been a bit of an off-field distraction this offseason, and to no one's favor. But he's still a 100-plus reception target, key in the slot. He was huge for the team last year. The team clearly loves him. Unless he was really hurt or continued to shoot himself in the foot repeatedly by tweeting to the dismay of everyone, he will absolutely be in as a number 2 and number 3 receiver for the Bills this year. And I would be shocked otherwise.
The rumor, or the suggestion is that he's let go in lieu of Will Fuller.
Yeah.
No.
Which is not a slot receiver. He's another outside burner. They just got Emmanuel Sanders.
Correct.
I don't know.
Yeah. First of all, Will Fuller is fucking awesome, but I don't see why they would do that. You don't just do that. This isn't Madden.
It's not Madden.
You're not just picking up a guy who's got a 3 higher overall. You want to keep a team that was realistically competing for a Super Bowl. You don't just get rid of key pieces for the fuck of it. You know, like
You might have the best slot receiver.
you might. And I think Will Fuller is really good, albeit hurt all the damn time. I do think that I would be shocked if he's gone. He's not on the team. I would be surprised if they went for Fuller. I think it's being driven by a very Notre Dame football friendly section of the Western New York media, and that will never happen.
Huh?
Tyler Johnson. They're saying the Sabres are going to trade for Tyler Johnson and have to protect him.
Who's
I like
Tyler
it.
Johnson?
Tyler Johnson.
He's a
from
player
the
of Tampa Bay.
Oh.
That's interesting. We're just reading mock expansion drafts in the background.
And they said that the pick is going to be Cody Eakin.
Listen, if you want to take Cody Eakin, I will drive him to Seattle myself. He fucking sucks so much.
This
Please.
is a hockey writer simulation. A bunch of players acted as GMs. This person offered a sweetener to avoid choosing Tage Thompson or Rasmus Asplund. They traded the Bruins' second-round pick that they got in the Taylor Hall deal.
And Eric Portillo. Why?
Yeah, this is not.
Eric Portillo is the only goaltender in the pipeline besides UPL.
Yeah.
I would never do that.
And he's so good. He just lit it up in Michigan. His numbers have been outstanding. And he's looking like he's going to be the starter in Michigan next year. And no.
Yeah, that's
You could have Tage Thompson before I'm giving up Eric Portillo right
written
now.
by a guy who's never watched the Sabres, and that's fine. There's a lot of those around there, but I think that makes no sense. It will be interesting to see.
Most people have Asplund being gone.
I wouldn't be shocked. I think out of the players that we listed available, I think he's the best one, unless you like Borgen. I think we may, in this room, like Borgen more than the general hockey media, and maybe because we watched a lot more of Will Borgen than, say, the general national media who's doing these mocks. It will be interesting. I think Borgen or Asplund are the easy two off the board, depending on how you structure the blocks. There's no one else really of good value. There's not like a sleeper down there. You're not JS Dea or whoever. I mean, who was even down there deep enough that you would be like, I want this guy specifically.
CJ Smith.
I was going to say the same joke, man.
I almost did, but I brag on CJ Smith too much. I almost feel bad. He's always the guy whose name I bring up in this situation. Anything? Before we get to the actual outro, FC Buffalo. And I know I haven't been here for a couple months. I've been moving and dealing with shit, and that whole time, Mike and I have been calling soccer on the weekends. So this upcoming weekend, we don't have the times as of this recording, but FC Buffalo women in their inaugural season won the UWS East Conference, and they are playing really good ball right now. They are going to be hosting the semifinals and finals for the East Conference this weekend. Times to be determined. They're playing Scorpions in the 1-4, which is like the only team that actually beat them handedly during the regular season. So that's a tough draw. As the number 1 seed, you have to play the team that crushed you.
The team that beat you 5-2 on the road a few weeks ago.
One of only 2 losses all season, and they're only lost by more than 1 goal. 7-2-1 or something ridiculous they did this year.
7-2-1. Yep.
But they're a lot of fun. Would recommend for anyone who's listening if you haven't already. And I don't know how big the soccer demographic of this podcast is. We don't really ever talk about football. But tons of fun. Tickets are not expensive. Recommend going out for the semis. The team is awesome. They play very aggressive offensive football, and they will lose or win based on how effective their 3 forwards are. We'll get more into detail on that, I'm sure, as the weeks go on. Hopefully they win through this weekend. They get to go on to whatever the next round is where all the conference champions meet. Regardless of that, it's been really impressive in their first season. I know some of these girls have played together at the collegiate level. There's a lot of UB Canisius Niagara players on the team, but for a team that not everyone has ever played together, got assembled on the tail end of not even being able to have in-person practices, basically, to go out together for the first time this year and win a conference is really impressive. And doing it against teams that have existed for much longer periods of time, players that have played together for years. It's a testament to Nick, to Liz, to that whole staff, what they've done. And it has been a very fun team to watch grow more and more and mature as the season has gone on. Hope I've captured your thoughts as well on that, Mike.
Yeah, if you have not been to an FC Buffalo women's game this year, this is definitely the right time to go. They're an exciting team. You will see a lot of offense.
They do love trying to push the pace of the game, which is great from just a viewing perspective. They love long balls. They love pushing the defense. They love trying to use the space. It makes it fun to watch because it's not that kind of, they don't park the bus. They don't try to drag you out in the midfield. They're not playing an offside trap. They're just straight up trying to run by you and score goals.
They are the definition of attacking.
Mm-hmm. So that will be this coming weekend. Unofficially, I believe the games are supposed to be like one semi's Friday, one Saturday, and the final would be Sunday. That hasn't been announced. Trying to schedule all of that for 3 teams traveling in from out of town. Scorpions, Connecticut, and Syracuse all coming in. Is a lot to handle, I would imagine, for all that. So hopefully we'll have an announcement of that. I know he's trying to get it out today, but hopefully the next day.
And in case anybody wants to know, Scorpions is in South Shore, Massachusetts.
Yeah, it's actually a true East Conference where all the teams are Massachusetts, New York,
Connecticut.
And Connecticut, yeah.
I hope the Sabres trade for Alexander Alexiev because I want Alex on our team.
I don't even know who that guy is.
You know why, but he's got a great name.
Alexia?
Yeah. I'm looking for protected defenders that the Sabres could trade Rista for. This is a swap. All the players that make sense are in the division.
Like this year's division or next year's division? Because they're going back to the regular divisions, allegedly.
Both.
Gotcha.
Noah Dobson makes more sense to me, but he's going to the Islanders, and I don't know if it makes sense for the Islanders to do. And then Alexiev, I've seen, is a nice player, but he's going against the Caps.
You know how much it stinks that both the Stanley Cup finalists this year are regularly in the Sabres division.
Yeah, it's crazy.
This is probably once in a, unless you're very, very old, lifetime thing. Unless you're old enough to remember the back when basically it was everybody was thrown into the playoffs all the playoff teams were thrown in by seeding, where you got a matchup like Philadelphia and Buffalo.
It's going to be fun, man. It's going to be a weird few weeks. I can't wait.
Any other tidbits for this kind of all over the place smorgasbord show, boys?
No, man. Get out of my house.
Listen, I'll be gone already if you didn't have to spend 30 minutes for your computer to figure out what the fuck it was doing.
It's working now.
It has been working, knock on wood, for this recording. So before I jinx it into oblivion, thank you all so much for listening. We'll be back here probably another week and a half to talk about the expansion draft, whatever the Sabres did or didn't do, how Jack Eichel loves playing in Minnesota, and all fun things that we'll get to talk about here on the next show. Until then, check out the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, whatever you like. And check us out on social media. We're on Twitter at 716 Sport Podcast, on Facebook 716 Sports Podcast. And stay tuned for the SB Buffalo games we announced at SB Buffalo on Twitter. Will probably be the best source for that. Until then, everyone, have a good night. We'll talk to you real soon.